Okay, take two. Hi everyone, I'm Toluca from Markers and Minions, and my internet cut me off before, not sure why. Hopefully we have more success as we plan Unit 1 for second grade tonight. So, before we begin, I want to let you all know that this is not going to be a mini lesson tonight, and there is going to be differentiating because the National Edition and the California Edition have some slight differences, and I'm going to be highlighting both, or talking about both editions. So I have completed plans for both California and National that I will send out to everybody this evening automatically. Whoa, what's this? Incoming video chat. I don't think that, I'm gonna decline that. I don't know what that is. Sorry. Okay. So hopefully we all can find the video. For live videos like this one, what you do is just go to our Benchmark Facebook group, refresh that feed until you see the, basically this screen in the news feed, and then you click on me, and then you'll be in the live video and you can chat, you can send comments. Hi Gail, hi Vicky. So, okay, so I have completed plans. I have notes that I took today as I was planning second grade Unit 1, and I have extension ideas. I made an anchor chart and all of that. So I will have all of this going out to you if you want it as an automatic email. At the end, I will, I'll write my email blast, set it up, give you guys a link, and when you enter your email, it'll just like automatically get sent to you while I go and do mom duties after this video. Okay, so here are my notes from Unit 1 for second grade. I have extension ideas here. I listed out the materials that you'll need by day. I came up with an anchor chart that you can print, and you can either tile print it, so it's actually this except in large, or you can put this under your dot cam, project it, and trace it onto butcher paper. So that looks like that. And then there's also going to be a student version that has fill in the blanks. So if you wanted the kids to fill out their own mini anchor chart while you're teaching your large anchor chart, that's an option too. So this will be available to all of you after we plan tonight. All right. Hi. Okay, good. Many of you are making it in. I'm glad. Okay, I'm going to start kind of slowly as we wait for more people to make it. Thank you, Gail. Okay, so first of all, these planning templates are free on my TPT shop. Just on my shop in the search bar, just search Benchmark Advanced Planning Templates and you'll find them. They're for grades 2 through 6, all lumped together, but tonight, since I'm focusing on second grade, I'll tell you exactly the differences for second and how second does look different for 3 through 6, but because I condensed it all in one template, not all of those differences are reflected, so I'll verbally acknowledge and talk you through it tonight. Let me close my door because I hear sirens. The songs of the night in my neighborhood. All right. So anyway, that's free to download there. So Unit 1 is a really fun unit, and I'm going to use my California edition and just fill out this, but check it out. National, it's already typed out, so I will talk you through it and have my cheat sheet here. So Unit 1, our essential question is, why do we need a government? Need a government. Okay, so coming off of kinder and first grade, it's kind of nice to see the progression. In kinder, they focus on rules. Why do we have rules? And then in first grade, it's it takes the idea of rules and it talks about, it evolves into being a good citizen and working in a community. And so now when we get to second grade, there's an introduction of government and Hi, Peggy. Yay, you found me. I don't know what that was before. I felt bad declining it, but it was popping up on my screen, so I didn't know if it was gonna like cancel my video out. So it evolves into this idea of government. So in second grade, that's really the first time that they're like truly being introduced to this concept. And it does this, it's introduced in a neat way. It focuses on, a little bit on General George Washington and the Revolutionary War, but through a fictional narrative. And it talks about our flag, so a little bit of symbolism there. And let me remember my text titles here. It goes into like important community workers. So we're going to be reading about like the smoke jumpers and police officers, a little bit about like the mayor, kind of. And then we're going to be reading about like laws and what happens if you break a law, and the role of the judge and the court, etc. So it's pretty good. It's interesting stuff, and the kids typically like it in second grade. So starting out here in our unit overview, I have our close reading skills, and these are all of your lessons that are going to be using your short reads and your extended reads. So they're all of your comprehension-based lessons. So they're not going to be the lessons in your shared reading. So even though in your shared reads, we'll go into that a little bit, how there is some spiral review of some comprehension in those shared reads, but mostly those are going to be for like, fluency and, accuracy and expression, and a little bit of like phonics review and context. So we're not going to list those skills here, but you have them still. So these are comprehension. You've got your spelling pattern for the week. Your language and writing here together they work simultaneously. So your grammar skill, and which is embedded into your writing. And national, this is where you will see the biggest difference, and it's in your writing. National edition teachers, if you're here from anywhere outside of like California using the national edition, just let me know, give me a little, hi, I'm national or something. We're gonna have this similar lessons in our comprehension, but they're gonna have different titles. So for example, if I say something like analyze sequence, in your TRS, it'll say, like story structure. So same lesson though, don't worry. But your writing is where there are differences, and we'll talk about that. Now the build vocabulary down here at the bottom, this is just because I pulled that out of close reading. Now your build vocabulary strategy is going to be a close reading lesson. It's not every week. It's an explicit vocabulary lesson. And sometimes that looks like, the most common one that we talk about all the time is use context clues. There's determine the meaning of domain-specific vocabulary. There's determine shades of meaning. So it's any lesson that's going to revolve around your point 4 standard, 2.4. Okay, and I like to pull that out just because for me personally, I like to teach vocabulary no matter what, even if there's not an explicit lesson that week. And I just kind of do it on my own, on the fly, using context clues. But if there is an explicit lesson that week, then you have that support there that you can bring in. Okay, so that is my overview. Now, for these skills, we're gonna find these in the TRS. And yes, all of this is in your TRS. So yes, like it's done for you already. It's in there, it's lovely, thank you, Benchmark. But the actual process of taking the skills and the strategies and the objectives out of the TRS and putting them onto your planning templates really helps you process. So, and at the end of it, you might not even need to refer back to this, but you'll have in your mind a very solid understanding of your unit. You'll be able to see what's spiraling, what your focus is throughout the unit. And it's also a way to honestly just become a little bit more comfortable in your teaching, because it will hopefully give you like the freedom to not like have to cling to this during your lessons because you don't know what to do. You're going to be processed and you're going to know, and you can put your teacher hat back on and kind of own your unit. All right. Arizona, Kansas, nice, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to be using this layout here. It's a 2-page spread, and now this is a Unit 3, Unit 4 TRS, that TRS that I'm borrowing. I'm not going to need to use this tonight because I prepped ahead of time using the online edition, but I just wanted to show you where I've gotten the skills from, and it's going to be from this weekly skills at a glance. Okay, which is quite overwhelming at first glance, but do not fear. So, week 1, I'm going to do color coding, and I'm going to have all my close reading lessons in red or pink. And now, if you use the same colors as me, you'll find that when I send you the completed plans, these are all color coded for you as well, using the same colors that I'm going to be using tonight. All right, so if you want to follow along using the same colors, it might be helpful. If not, it's all good. So, close reading, I'm looking under my reading mini lessons for the week. It's up here at the top. And actually, national, yours might have phonics at the top. But regardless, under reading, find your short reads, not your shared reads. Okay, so you're gonna have 2 short reads for the week, switching day 1 and 2 is one, and then day 3, 4, 5 is the other. And you're gonna find what those comprehension lessons are. So for example, the first one is always, anytime close reading protocol, like just in general close reading, doesn't matter the program, doesn't matter what, curriculum you're following. The first thing you do is identify the key details. So that's our first skill there. Then I see text and graphic features to locate information. Okay, so I'm just going to say use text and graphic features. Use text evidence to draw inferences. Okay, teacher brain inferencing. So I'm going to take these and I'm just going to write them like shorthand on my Unit 1 close reading skills. Okay, so key details. In national, yours says identify the main topic. Use text and graphic features. Oh my God, I'm crazy. Don't listen to me. This is why I shouldn't be using that. That's Unit 3. So use context clues is the second one, not use text and graphic features. Used context clues. Then I see identify author's purpose. Then we switch over to the second short read, and it is a fictional story, so it's going to be key events or story events. And then analyze sequence or national story structure. It's a text structure lesson. Then there's a differences in point of view. So I'm just going to write different POV, different points of view. And then the last lesson is the compare contrast lesson. I'm going to write the connection sign just to show linking. The last lesson of every week is going to be using 2 texts, and you're going to be integrating information somehow, whether you're like comparing and contrasting or using your knowledge that you learned from your first text to then like make an inference about your second text, some sort of like connection that way. It's your point 0.9 standard. All right, so notice how in week 1 you've got 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 close reading lessons. But you have to fit those all into a week. So when we get into our weekly planner, I'll show you how I like combine a couple things, omit a couple things, move things around to make it work. Hi, Miss Ponce. Miss you. Okay, and now we're going to go across this way. Close reading, we're going to go into week 2. So before we even analyze anything else from week 1, we're going to go into week 2 and see what those skills are, just so we can see what comes up again. So first of all, it's going to be that key details lesson, key details and main idea. Use context clues. And again, I'm just going to show this one more time. It's from this spread, the reading lessons, in the second half. Author's purpose. Analyze sequence, or text connections, text structure. It's in national, it's called text connections. In week 2, it's still a sequencing lesson nonetheless, because you're showing how the different paragraphs connect. So I'm going to use the same terminology as my week 1, analyze sequence. And then there's the compare and contrast. Okay, so now I'm going to pause before going to week 3, and I'm going to analyze. So I see some repeats here. So context clues, that's good. That means that we are going to have an explicit vocabulary instruction lesson. So that's both weeks. So I'm going to write that here at the bottom. Okay, and that spirals. Good. Now, what I also see repeating is author's purpose and analyze sequence. Now, key details, always repeating. Compare, contrast, like I said, always repeating. But here's what repeats from week 1 to week 2. Okay, so in week 1, you know, when you've got 7 mini lessons here and you're like, oh my God, how can I fit all of these in? And I'm still like practicing, trying to make my mini lessons mini. Just trust, know that even though it's going to go over their heads in week 1, like you've exposed them to it, you've modeled it, they know the wording, it's going to come up again in week 2. Both of those 2 lessons there. Okay, so you can release yourself from the pressure of like having to teach these lessons to the point where they're like, yeah, we get it, we feel good about this. Because they're not, and you're going to have opportunities to revisit it and continue to build their skills. So I'm just going to put my little spiral signs. And by the end of this, you're going to have spiral signs on everything, and it's going to be like, wait, what? But again, it's in the moment you're processing. Okay, week 3. We've got key events because it is a story, getting a message to General George Washington. Shades of meaning, so that is a vocabulary lesson. So I'm going to pull that out, write that at the bottom there. Now, shades of meaning focuses on the differences between the different weight that words carry. So for example, she said, or she whispered, she said, she yelled. Okay, so they mean more or less, they mean this kind of the same thing, but there's shades, there's levels to this. So that's what kind of vocabulary lesson is in there. Now to me, that doesn't always help my students make sense of the text. So this text is tough, right? It's complex. So I might still make the decision to have them annotate words that are unfamiliar, so circle words that are weird or new for them, and then like a quick verbal, like, oh, this is what this means, or let's read this sentence, now you can figure out what that means, or here's a synonym, or here's another way of saying that. So some sort of acknowledgement of those other words that they pull out. Hi, Joanne, welcome back. All right, not done. Different points of view is the next one. Then I've got the compare and contrast lesson. All right, and I noticed that Shades of Meaning is only week 3, so I want to make sure that I get to that because it's not like they've had the exposure in the other 2 weeks. And I do want to also point out that different point of view is on weeks 1 and week 3. So that spirals. All right. Now a quick note about the compare contrast lesson. Even though that's the same like lesson title, it's not always focusing on the same thing. So just keep that in mind. You'll have to go into the lesson and really make sure that you're comparing and contrasting the specific thing that they want you to compare and contrast. All right. So I'll put an asterisk by Shades of Meaning, like I got to get to that, because that doesn't come up again. And then another thing, week 3, see how you've got these 4 close reading lessons? On day 5, you are, I think, am I getting confused with first grade? I think there's a reflection, yeah. So on day 5, there's a reflection day. So you're not doing your lesson, your compare contrast lesson on day 5, it's bumped up. So that's why you see less in week 3. All right, I'm going to move to my next color now, which is spelling / phonics. Okay, in week 1, and by the way, this is where it is. In the California edition, ours is all along the bottom here. I think in National, it's up at the top, which makes more sense, right? I mean, in California, like, you're welcome to do that too. Put it up at the top along with your shared reading time. Do it together, right? Just start your day with your phonics, your shared reading, and then go into your comprehension and writing. Keep comprehension and writing together, back to back, if you can. I mean, you can do your small group in between if you are like doing your small groups in between your mini lessons, that's fine. But keep in mind that just like the writing's typically it's related to the reading. So what you're reading about, you're also writing about. So it's nice to keep those together. All right, so in week 1 for Unit 1, it's not just one skill. It's a different focus every day, and I think pretty sure this is only in Unit 1, Week 1. Otherwise, you just have one spelling pattern for the week. But I found that you've got short vowels, initial and final blends. Initial blends is on day 2, I believe. Final blends, day 3. And then there are 2 days of digraphs, different digraphs. I always spell that wrong, sorry. Okay, not diagraphs. Okay, and week 2, it's closed and open syllables. In week 3, long A. And I'm using the blue for that. Hi, Courtney, yay, I'm glad. Hey, Jessica. Okay, language and writing, I'm gonna keep those both green because they are embedded, they're together. So, and they're different for California and National. I'll do California first, then I'll go over National. So California, your language skill, and by the way, is it gonna tell me? Mm-mm. Oh yeah. So, okay. The grammar or the language is meant to be taught in context, right? So we're applying the grammatical or the language conventions in our writing. So it's introduced on your drafting day, or it's really focused on your drafting day, which is day 4. So that's where it's going to be kind of hidden there. So extract that, pull that skill out, and make note of it. In national, I think yours is like day 5. It's not even, it's very end of the week. So for California, commas in greetings and closings. All right, and then week 2 is collective nouns. And week 3, past tense, irregular verbs. Okay. California. National. You've got collective nouns, week 1, complete simple sentences, week 2, and reflexive pronouns, week 3. All right, now writing. So these are your writing mini lessons here. Whoa, almost took me out. Here we go. Writing type. In California, we have 1 writing type a week. There are 3 main types of writing. There's writing for information, informative writing, opinion writing, and narrative writing. And everything sort of falls under that one of those 3 categories. Every type of prompt, every type of writing falls under those, like the umbrella, right? So in week 1, we have a journal entry. So the kids are going to be writing a journal entry, which is narrative writing. So I'm going to write journal entry narrative. And this is California. National teachers, sit tight for a second. In week 2, the kids are writing an informative essay. So that's informational. I'm just going to write informational. And then, so since we have narrative and informational, that means week 3 has to be opinion, because that's the way that our California program is designed. They're doing all 3 types of writing within every unit for a lot of the units. Okay. So this is the overview for California. Now national, your week 1 writing is going to be, the layout is going to be very similar to us here in California, what we're used to. You're going to be writing a letter. So that's a narrative, and you're going to follow the same sort of flow as our writing lessons, which is day 1, you're going to analyze a mentor letter, and then here we analyze a prompt. It's slightly different. Analyze a mentor letter, so an example. Then day 2, you're going to pull details or find text evidence from the mentor text. Then day 3 and 4, plan, draft, and day 5 is revise and edit. Then the big shift in writing for national is the performance task practice. So there are performance tasks in Benchmark in both editions, and they involve using more than 1 text. It's just like the state test where they use 2 texts. The kids have to answer part A, part B, use those responses to then write something, right? So there's an emphasis on developing those skills explicitly in the national writing program. Just from my understanding of I've never taught it, but just from what I can see, and I made those writing booklets, so I somewhat analyzed it. In week 2 and week 3, you have performance task practice. And what that's going to look like for you guys is teaching the kids how to answer the Part A, Part B, how to answer constructive response questions where they use a text to pull evidence and incorporate that into their response. It's not going to look like something that you can put up on the wall afterwards. It's going to be answering questions in like these little short responses. All right, so don't get like confused about that. It looks different. All right, so let's go into week 1, unit 1, week 1. So in 2nd grade, the K1 and 2 has shared reads, and like I mentioned before, the shared reads they're these 2 short texts. Let me show you the unit 3 ones. They're at the start of your unit. Am I gonna have, yeah, okay. So it's like, and you're gonna have to squint, but see how short that is? That's like half the page, all right? So that's one of them. And then the other one is going to be, dang, we're still on day 2. It's gonna be introduced day 3. And it's again, just like a 1-pager short text. They're side by side in the student consumable, and those are used for a little bit of everything. You can do some spiral review for phonics, within context, find the short A words or whatever. There's an emphasis on fluency, right? So you have something that you're modeling, whether that's your pacing, whether that's your, self-correcting as you're reading, your prosody. You can use it to find some of your language skills. So it's like a daily practice. And that goes away after 2nd grade. So your week 1 shared reads are a city park, all good?
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
We're going for a walk.
All right, have fun. And Betsy's battle flag. And I'm doing that in dark blue. All right. Now your short reads in week 1, you've got 2 of them. Those are the ones that you're using for your comprehension-based lessons. So I'm going to stick to the red or the pink for that. And you've got smoke jumpers, which the kids love. And can you sew a flag, Betsy Ross? Okay, so here we have these first 2 texts, or well, these ones up top, a city park and smoke jumpers, bring in the idea of important workers, okay? So a city park is gonna talk about like city workers and what they do, how they keep our city clean. And then smoke jumpers talk about type of firefighter that puts out mountainous fires. And then these other texts, Betsy's battle flag and Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross, has to do with our nation's history and how we got our flag.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Go away, Siri. Okay, so the next section here is for our phonics focus. Now I'm just gonna put, even though there's several, I'm just gonna put short vowels. And then I'm going to list our week 1 spelling words, which are box, this, chest, wet, stand, him, jump, run, shop, and stand. All right. And then your language focus. And on these templates, I don't have a space for high frequency words. So if you want to put those off to the side here, you can. Yeah, I just don't, sorry. So our language focus is for California, commas and greetings and closing. So you're just pulling what you know, what you just wrote there. Greetings and closings. All right, Tracy, I'd love to know more about your second grade expectations for writing. My kids need a lot of guidance. There might be 3 or 5 kids that can write to the prompt independently. About 7 can't read or write yet. In the beginning of the year, I would say that's fine, because how often in their experience, in their school career, have they written to prompts? Most of the time, they're not. I tell this story about my kids. Our first year with Benchmark, we took the interim 1 assessment in the beginning of the year. They read an informational piece about the bald eagle. Then there was a prompt that said, imagine you're walking through the forest with your family and you see a bald eagle. Tell a story about that experience. So that prompt is clearly narrative, right? They're telling a story. They're integrating some of that information from the text, the source, the informational piece on the bald eagle, but they're not writing about a bald eagle. They're not writing facts and details. What did all my kids do? They wrote facts and details about the bald eagle. So that's kind of just what they're used to. It's like, oh, we read about it, let's just write what we just read about. But they weren't able to transfer and write in a different text type. So in the beginning of the year especially, but even so, even throughout the year, my emphasis with my writing lessons, my benchmark writing lessons, we're teaching the kids how to really analyze that prompt. So that's where I'm spending the majority of, not my time, but that's what I'm putting the most effort into. And then from there, like, you're modeling, and I modeled my draft every week. So they might be doing more of like a shared writing experience with you where you're the scribe. If you need to do that, then that's what you need to do, right? But repeated exposure to that idea of analyzing and writing to a prompt is really going to help them. Okay, now day 1, this is where we get fancy. So I have introduced the new unit, and in Benchmark, the way that you do that is you talk about your unit concepts, and you can show that quick little clip. I like to use the anchor chart, and honestly, I'm not doing that day 1, because if I was doing that day 1, I wouldn't have time for anything else. I like to really go into this and spend a lot of time on building the background knowledge first through the use of the chart, exposing them to the vocabulary that they're going to be hearing, etc. But I've got that here for those of you that don't choose that option. Then we go into our first short read. So I do something called my 3 reads method, and it's where the first time we're reading a text, I'm reading it aloud to them, and I'm modeling fluent reading, and I am not going into any sort of comprehension lesson. I'm just getting through it. We're just enjoying the text, right? Love of reading, enjoyment. Then, since in week 1, since those texts are short, they can immediately do the second read. So that's where the kids, I just read it to them. Yay, we learned all about smoke jumpers. Now, boys and girls, you're going to read smoke jumpers again, and you're going to annotate. So you might have them read with a buddy if they're not able to read it independently or in a group. And then that's where they're annotating. And I don't grade these annotations. It's just an opportunity for them to connect to the text in some way. And I don't tell them what symbols they need to use, because the symbols that they use are going to be very reflective of their reading abilities. Okay, and so I don't want to I don't want to tell them what they can and can't be using. Afterwards, I teach the phonics and the language explicitly. So the spelling pattern, I introduce it, and then I also introduce the language, the grammar for the week, even though that's meant to be taught in context and that doesn't come up until day 4/5, like the end of the week. But I want them to be able to practice this skill throughout the week, and so that's why I will explicitly teach commas and greetings and closings. And one of the things that Gail said, who's a second grade teacher, she's been doing benchmark for several years. My dogs are going nuts. I hope you guys can't hear that. If I pay attention to the grammar or language skill earlier in the week, I may try to sneak it in. For example, commas and greetings and closing. So I will write the kids a note on the board that says, "Dear boys and girls, comma." Yeah, so bringing it in ways like that. And if you're using my big cheese, which is the daily, like the shared writing activity, the way that you would start your day outside of benchmark, this is a great way to also bring that in and highlight those skills in context still. All right, so bam, I've read to them. We've done, quick whiteboard lesson on spelling and grammar. Then we go into our writing lesson. Now, California edition writing, day 1 is pretty much always analyze the prompt. So they're not writing anything yet. And national teachers, your first day for week 1 is very similar. You're analyzing an actual text. So, which can be found in the weekly presentation. So you pull up it has to be accessed digitally from what I understand. You click on the, it'll say like the mentor letter, and you pull it up. So what that looks like is for the prompt, and you can do this in the writing booklets, or like before I made those booklets, what I would do was I would write the prompt on my whiteboard, and I would use 3 colors, and I would just analyze for 3 things. The TRS has you analyzing for tons of different things. But what I would analyze for is main topic. Okay, so what are you even writing about? Then the type of writing, so I want the kids to know, like, am I writing a narrative, or am I expected to write an informational piece or an opinion piece? Regardless of what I've read, what is my writing task purpose? And then the third thing is the source. So like, what text are we going to be pulling our evidence from and weaving into our writing? So I would say, like in red, if I'd get my red whiteboard marker. Give me just a second. Okay, so here's what it typically looks like. There's usually like a table here. I started doing that, but I just didn't find it to be that meaningful. So that's why I started just doing like a color coding. So with my red whiteboard marker, main topic. So we would read the prompt, and then I would say, okay, what is it that we're writing about? They would find the section of the prompt that tells us what our topic of the writing is, and I would just underline that in red. Then we'd move on to the type of writing, and that was blue. So they would read and they would say, oh, letter, it's a letter. Okay, so that's what? We'd underline letter and say, okay, that's a narrative. And it takes time to get to this point, but eventually it's like they've got it. And then with the green whiteboard marker, the source. So in the prompts, it'll always say, like, use facts and details from smoke jumpers in your letter, or whatever your prompt is. And you would underline smoke jumpers and say, okay, that's the text that we're going to be pulling evidence from. So that's what that looked like. So I'm going to write in green journal entry, and I actually wrote specifics on this one that I prepped. Write a journal entry, not a letter, sorry. Write a journal entry from the point of view of the smoke jumper. So that's also touching on points of view, which is one of those comprehension skills, remember? And I'm just writing that whole thing out. Where it says the lesson number, this is for 3rd and above because the lessons actually are numbered 1 through 15. In 2nd grade, and Can1, it's broken up by day instead. So here, what I recommend for 2nd grade teachers is find the page in your TRS, the page number for that lesson. Like for example, in this Unit 3-1, it's page 10. So I would write like page 10 there, just so you know writing, okay, let me find it, so that you're not flipping through all the days. When do I use the chart? Usually like the Friday or the Thursday before I start the unit. Okay, now day 2, as soon as we sit down on the carpet after your phonics, your shared reading, right? Remember, you're doing that every day in 2nd. After you've done that, the first thing we do when we open our text for close reading, when we go back to smoke jumpers, is we review the vocabulary from the student's annotation. So I say, yesterday, boys and girls, when you were annotating yourself, did you circle any words? Were there any words that were unfamiliar to you? And this is just a quick, like 5-minute thing. Few hands will shoot up and say, whatever, parachute, I know is one of the vocabulary words, or whatever they choose is what I focus on. So then, and typically when they say that, then the other kids are like, oh, me too, I found that word also. Great, let's talk about it real quick. Let's read the sentence. So that's where I do my like mini informal context clues lesson. If you've got an actual context clues lesson that week, like you do in week 1, then, you know, maybe do that lesson instead, or don't worry about doing this, you know, so you can kind of get creative with that. Then you do your 3rd read. So yesterday we read it twice, 1st and 2nd. Now today we're gonna actually do a close read of it. And this is where I stray from benchmark, because benchmark has you doing a close read on day 1, which is normal, it's not crazy, it's protocol. But I was finding that my students just wanted to read it, like get through it, especially in weeks 2 and weeks 3 when it's extended, it's longer. And then you spend like one day on half, one day on the other half. There was more enjoyment and excitement around the concepts when we could just read it, you know, and not have to apply a purpose to it yet. But so day 2, it's pushed, right? So here's where I do my first close reading lesson. So that's going to be in red, the key details lesson, or national main topic, key details and main idea. All right, now before focusing on any other section, I'm gonna go into the close reading for the other days and show you, and kind of just, you know, do a metacognitive strategy here where you understand where you can hear my thought process. So since I've got 7 close reading lessons in week 1, and I'm not doing it day 1, I really only have 4 days to work with for those 7 lessons. So here's where I will look at my skills and try to think, well, where can I get creative with this, okay? So key details, yeah, we're doing that day 2. Context clues, okay, I might try to do that lesson also, like, you know, right here on day 2 before we go into our key details. Okay, so I'm gonna write context clues next to that. Then next on my list, I have author's purpose. And then you also want to keep in mind, like, some of these are for your first short read and some of these are for your second short read, okay? So day 2, you're on your first short read. Day 3, you're still on that one, okay? But here's where you do sort of a transition. I'm going to say author's purpose for this one. So what is the author's purpose of smoke jumpers? So we'll talk about how the purpose is to inform, because we're getting facts and details. Okay, now this is day 3 is when your word study text is incorporated. So this is the, wait, I rewind. We're going to continue with comprehension. Sorry, I'll go back to that afterwards. So then the next day we're on our second short read. We've switched. So we're on Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross. So the first lesson is the key events, right? Summarize key events typically. But I see that I've got also analyze sequence or story structure for national. So my mind thinks I'm going to focus on that lesson, the sequencing. And within that lesson, when we're filling out the beginning, the middle, the end, I'm going to highlight, or I'm going to kind of weave into my teaching that like we only want the key events here. We're not going to put minor events in this chart. We're just going to sequence the most important things, and then it's kind of a crossover between the lessons. And then afterwards, you can even model how to write just a short summary, which is the objective of that lesson, summarize key events, a short summary using just the events that you put on your sequence chart, your flow chart. So I'm going to combine. Does that make sense? Emphasize key events. All right, and then I have another close reading lesson on day 4, and that's where I can pull my next skill. So the differences in points of view. Now day 5 is always that connection lesson. So compare, contrast. So you're comparing and contrasting a literary text versus informational text. So probably these 2 short reads, right? Okay, so that's what my reading comprehension flow looks like for the week. Okay. Now let's go into writing. So day 2 is going to be finding text evidence, or national, it's going to be gathering details, same idea. And again, just put the TRS lesson number there. And what you might do as a scaffold in the beginning of the year is make a bank of text evidence. So you've practiced lifting a line, right, and you're reviewing routines days. So pull out lines from smoke jumpers. You can do this ahead of time that might show, or because your prompt is the point of view of a smoke jumper. So lines that are very descriptive in like what a smoke jumper might see or smell or hear or feel, right? Just take a few of those, put them up on the board like as a bank, and say, okay, choose one idea that you want to incorporate into your journal entry. Now, obviously this is a narrative, so you don't want to use a direct quote, that'd be weird, but which line from the story, can you connect with, and then just have them do like a little visualization. I really liked it when they talked about what they saw or whatever. And then in their journal entry, just let them know like, okay, when you do write, when we start writing tomorrow and the day after, talk about some of the things that you see and use this as inspiration for your writing. That's the gist of what that day is about. Day 3 of writing is planning, and this is where, if you're like a thinking maps teacher or a step up to writing teacher, or you have your graphic organizers that you already know and love, you want to bring in some of your other writing strategies, it's a good day to do it. So the days that we're planning, I also tend to begin modeling my draft if I can, okay? So that I'm not just like bombarding them on day 4 with like an entire draft. So But that's where you're going into like, okay, you're writing your journal entries. So you're going to write, Dear Journal, comma. Then you're going to flush, and then you're going to indent, and then you're going to write, today there was a fire in the whatever. So you're also talking about the elements of a journal entry, right? So you're planning and teaching those elements. Then day 4 is your actual drafting. So it's a continuation. And then day 5, there's a revise and an edit. Let me see if this Unit 3 TRS has a good example of that. Yeah. Okay, so this is what that lesson looks like. You're going to see a revise skill and an edit skill. The edit skill is going to be something grammar related. Revision is going to be content. So what I do instead of having the kids go and revise and edit their entire drafts, right? I say, because otherwise that is like, okay, I'm done, I did it. All right, great. But did you really? So what I tend to say is choose one sentence from your draft that you can pull out and show me that you've revised it using this skill. Okay, so whatever it is here, I want to see that you've added that or you've done that to that sentence. And I literally have them take it out of their draft and write it somewhere else. Then I say, okay, for this edit skill, pull out one of your sentences from your draft that you can make better by editing using this skill and show me. And so they pull it out and they've got 2 sentences there that they've made better. And I find that's a lot less overwhelming than going through and revising and editing the whole thing. Okay. So the only thing left here is the word study. And what I was about to mention earlier is the word study text. That is your bridge from 2nd to 3rd. So 2nd is very much related to 1st and K in the sense that you've got phonics every day and you've got, shared reading every day. In 3rd, we don't, right? But in 3rd, what we do have is something called a word study text. It's our version of the decodable. So this is phonics related, and I just write the text title there, and that's where you're going in and applying and finding the short vowels, these words that follow these patterns in context. And the kids are like circling or highlighting, or they're coming up and doing a big word sort on your whiteboard, or something like that. So it looks like this. All right. And national teachers, I want to hold up the finished one for you guys too, because I went into a little bit with specifics, I think, kind of, for writing. So it's personal letter, read a mentor letter. Brainstorm ideas for your personal letter by reviewing smoke jumpers. Okay, so it's what I was talking about before, like in California, it's called find text evidence. You're pulling inspiration from the text to incorporate in your writing. And then plan your letter draft, and then on day 5, it says language focus, collective nouns. All right. I'm going to move on to week 2. Okay. Okay, week 2, your shared reads are, what does a police officer do? And that's where you're connecting it to important workers. And the other one is Max and the Mayor. So it's really about a dog, Max. and it like mentions the word mayor. So they're not really learning about what a mayor is or what a mayor does, but they're learning what that word is. And on here, that's why I added the mayor makes decisions for the city. And making decisions is something that you'll see in the government text. So I kind of put those together. All right, and then your extended read. So read for your comprehension, our government's laws. And you've just got one in weeks 2 and weeks 3. Okay, your phonics is closed and open syllables. And go ahead and write your spelling words and high frequency words and your language focus while I go yell at my dogs. Cupcake! Stop it. Okay. No. Are your high frequency words some of these spelling words? They might double up. Dentist problem. Open, silent. Okay, California language is collective nouns. And national, complete simple sentences. Okay. All right, day one. Day one, I have introduced new unit. That's crazy. Don't listen to me. You can review and make the connections so to build the unit concepts. You start with your day one. And then I'll have to fix that. And then you go into your extended read. So I have here first/second read, but honestly, after reading the extended read, I usually don't have the kids go like immediately follow up and do their second read because it's too long. So I just read it to them day one, and that's kind of it typically. All right, and then we go into our writing, and it's going to be an informative text on explain why laws are important. National, you're doing your performance task practice. So let me show you what that looks like. National, you're starting with reading and analyzing a mentor text. And let me just show you how this unfolds throughout the week. So you're analyzing a mentor text. Then the next day, you're going to practice answering 2-part questions. So it's the part A, part B question. And those 2 questions are about your mentor text. So it's comprehension. And then day 3, practice answering constructed response questions. So that is where they go in and use details from their mentor text and they write a short response. Then day 4, practice answering questions that have multiple responses. And then day 5 is your language focus, complete simple sentences. So it's that language lesson there. So really, for the most part, the only days that they're really writing is day 3 and then I think maybe day 4. But for the most part, it's analyzing a mentor text, getting them ready for performance task-based writing. All right. Now day 2. Day 2, since we typically don't have time for them to annotate day 1, I'll have them start the day on day 2. So it's Tuesday for us. We'll sit down and I'll say, okay, open up our government's laws. Yesterday I read it to you. Now I'm going to give you about just 5-10 minutes to skim through it by yourself or with a partner and make your annotations. Connect with some or all of the text. Then go over any confusing words. But honestly, like this is going to weave in a lot of those confusing words. You're going to pre-teach a lot of it. Then you're going to go into your close reading lesson, and that first lesson is always key details, main idea. You guessed it. And main topic is the wording in national. Now in day 3, you're going to open your day with another close reading lesson after your phonics and shared reading. And we're going to do author's purpose again. So just like smoke jumpers in week 1, the purpose of our government's laws is again to inform. So that's going to be a review from week 1. Doesn't need to be like a full-on introduction to author's purpose or anything like that. Day 4, 2 close reading lessons. I'm going to bring in that use context clues lesson. And then I see there's the analyze sequence. And it's text connections for national. And then day 5 is that compare contrast. So these lessons fit in nicely in week 2. And compare contrast, that day you're going to be comparing and contrasting the images from our government's laws and smoke jumpers. National, you're going to be comparing and contrasting key points from what does a police officer do, so the shared read, and our government's laws, which is the extended read. Okay, now national, I showed you your progression of writing for California is the same progression: text, evidence, plan, draft, revise, edit for the most part. Okay. I am going to point out that, like, yes, every day you're doing your phonics and your shared reading, but I know that eventually, like, shared reading is something that I've heard of teachers giving as a independent task for kids to complete with a partner. So they're like reading together, they're doing buddy reading, practicing their fluency, they're finding a short A word or whatever it is that you give them. That can eventually become something that's not taking up your whole class time every day. You can also, since they're short, you can also maybe just spend a couple days on those and not do it every day. So you can get creative with that. Linda says, do you ever play the audio of text instead of reading aloud? My partner teacher does that a lot because whenever she follows this method as well, where she reads aloud to the kids first, but she was finding like whenever she would read a text, she would want to stop and further explain this part or go into what this word means, and it was challenging. So she takes advantage of using the audio. I like to read it to them because I feel like, and this has been discussed, I know Gail and I have talked about it too, when you're taking a topic like government, it can potentially be a snooze, right? So when I'm reading it to them, I am doing a song and dance. Like, I'm making this the best thing they've ever read. And I feel like the audio just, reads it. So if you're reading it aloud to them, that's where you have that opportunity to make it super interesting and enjoyable. Okay. Are you doing a writing lesson one day? I teach with Benchmark Adelante, and the writing is so difficult for my students. Is it following the same layout as ours, where you're like analyzing, finding text evidence, planning, and drafting? I feel like the writing being difficult is a sentiment that most of us share. So again, model, model, model. Just speaking from experience, that analyze the prompt lesson is pulling teeth in the beginning of the year. And then eventually it's like, oh, I'm writing an opinion because it says give some reasons. So it becomes a little bit more automatic for the kids, but it gets to that point because you've modeled it week after week after week. I don't skip the writing lessons. I don't get creative and try to combine. I do those. Okay, let's see. Desiree, I had to leave the video and I just came back. So you have probably talked about this, but why isn't there a shared read section on week 2, day 1? Do you include that in your unit intro? So week 2, day 1, this unit intro thing, I just caught that. It looks like I put that on all 3 of my weeks because I was not paying attention. The shared reads, though, are meant to be done daily in 2nd grade. If you're following the TRS, exactly how Benchmark lays it out, Benchmark has all the components of a workshop, right? So you're doing the shared read every day. But I don't have those listed here just because this is a template that I use for a span of grade levels. And I designed it this way because of these planning videos. I typically don't segment them by grade level. We get a bunch of grade levels on and we try to all work together. But 2nd grade, even though there's no space here for your phonics and your shared reads, it is implied that you do that every day. And I was explaining earlier that not the shared reads is something that not everyone does every day after a time. Yeah, okay. So week 3, and then we've done it, friends. Your shared reads are ring the bell. The shared reads are also nice because they're topically aligned, so you're building more of the concepts of government or whatever your unit concept is on. It's just additional texts that relate. And then December 1776. And your extended read is the wrong color, is getting a message to General George Washington or General Washington. Okay, phonics, long A. We've got day, rain, mail with an AI, play, paint, stay, break, great. A lot of different patterns here. Chain, and say. California, the language focus is past tense irregular verbs. And national is reflexive pronouns like, and I wrote them down. You're going to be going over myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, themselves, yourselves, all of them. Okay. Following the same protocol for day 1, where you read aloud the extended read, and anytime you're done reading any text, your shared read, your extended reads, any of it, your word study, always come back to this. You're going to have this somewhere that's present, that's it's visible, and you're going to make connections. So this isn't like a one and done kind of thing. It's something that you can revisit and, come back, make connections with throughout the whole entire unit. You can even make it interactive where the kids, so important workers, give them a post-it note and say, what important workers did you read about? Write a response, okay, come stick it up here, or draw something, come stick it up here on top of important workers. Or anything like that, I like mine to be interactive. Okay, type of writing is an opinion, and the opinion writing is, was Tom brave? So Tom is the character in Getting a Message to General Washington. Was Tom brave? So they're arguing if he was brave or not. In National, I'm going to show you your entire week's progression and briefly explain it. So week one, day one, it's part 1 of 2. So the first day, you're going to find text evidence to answer cross-text questions. So a question that requires the students to pull from 2 sources. They're going to gather evidence from both sources. They're going to continue that, day 2, gathering evidence. Day 3, they're going to actually answer the cross-text question. That's the written response using the evidence. Then they're going to read and analyze a mentor response. So that's where you bring in a sample and you analyze it together. And then here, day 5 is language. I wonder if it would almost be better to switch that, like analyze the response first and then have them write theirs using their evidence. I don't know. But that's it. And then their performance task is done. Okay. Day 2, find the key events or the story events from Getting a Message to General Washington. It was with this text that I made the decision to never break up the text again. It was with this exact one because I remember I read the first half of this story and the kids were like, we can't wait to hear what happens. Because I think it breaks like with a cliffhanger. Like I think he runs into the soldiers. And so then I thought, like, why am I doing this way? So that's when I made this decision to always read aloud first. Okay, day 3, the next close reading lesson, different points of view. Day 4, I'm going to plan for that Shades of Meaning lesson. And then afterwards, I'm going to do the compare contrast lesson because remember, day 5 is reflect. All right, so you're comparing and contrasting the key concepts of government and citizenship in the text that they've read. And then day 5, here, it's just reflect on unit concepts. So that's where you can come back to your anchor chart, talk about all the texts you've read, have them write a response to the essential question, why do we need a government? And then, I used to give my kids, like, when I had a combo, a 2-3 combo, I gave them a note card. And then on that day, they would answer the essential question, week 3. And then I would have my 2nd grade note cards up on the bulletin board and the 3rd grade note cards. So they answered their essential question, they answered theirs. And then with each unit, we'd put another note card on top, staple it. So by the end of it, we had several note cards answering the big ideas. Okay. And now this is another area here where it says, it still says cross-text analysis, because in 3rd grade, like, we are still doing a close reading lesson there. We don't have that reflection opportunity right there. Okay, and then writing, we're following that same progression. So you would write in the TRS page number, so you can quickly thumb to it. And then the word study for that week is Here Comes the Mail. And that's day 3. I don't think week 2 I forgot the word study text on day 3, which was class president and interview. Okay. In a nutshell. And again, I can email you these completed plans, all of this. About that link. So when I post that link afterwards, it's going to prompt you to input your email, and it's going to go into my email system. So don't put your email if you don't ever want to hear from me. But once you're in my system, it's going to like automatically send you this stuff. And so because it's an automatic email, a lot of district emails will flag it as spam. So before, if you don't see it, before reaching out to me, just check your spam folder and then try with like a personal Gmail account, see if that doesn't fix it, because I ran into a lot of issues like that the last couple of days. And I think that's it, everybody. So thank you for hanging around this long, and I'm gonna sign off, but then I will go back and I will answer more questions in the comments. So if I didn't get to your question, don't worry, I'm coming for you. All right, have a good night, guys.